The throne room of the Galactic Empire stretched farther than the eye could see. A cathedral of cold, metal, and shadow, its ceilings lost in darkness. Its walls lined with portraits of those who had served the Emperor faithfully, all silent witnesses. To the horrors he commanded, the Galactic Emperor sat upon his obsidian throne, his cloak a flowing void that seemed to swallow the light around him. His fingers tapped in erratic rhythm against the armrest, each tap echoing like a heartbeat, in a grave, as if the room itself feared the sound. The stars beyond the massive viewport blinked in distant galaxies, indifferent to the deeds of one man. Yet even their cold light seemed to recoil at the presence of him. For years, the Emperor had waged a campaign across countless worlds, leaving nothing but ashes and shattered dreams. His name was whispered, in terror from the outer rims to the core worlds, a sound that made grown men tremble, a sound that had become synonymous with annihilation. Today, he had surpassed all his previous cruelties. The tally of the innocents fell heavy upon the palace archives, each name etched into a crystalline record that glimmered with a spectral light. 5,731 human children, each extinguished under his command, their laughter and potential stolen. Reduced to nothing but numbers, in the Emperor's ledger, the court officials bowed at the edges of the chamber, their heads lowered, their eyes glinting with fear and reverence. No one dared speak unless spoken to, for even a whisper of dissent could result in immediate execution. The Emperor's gaze swept over them, a cold, calculating light that made the tallest generals shrink within themselves. Some had served him since childhood, witnesses to his rise from mortal ruler to godlike tyrant. Yet even they flinched at the sheer weight of his presence. He raised a single hand, skeletal and veined, the gesture halting all movement, the silence in the chamber deepening until it seemed like a living thing. He had called this assembly for a reason, though none could guess what it might be. It was not often the Emperor summoned his court, and when he did, the event was invariably an omen of blood or a decree of conquest. Today, however, there was something else, an unspoken tension in the air that made the usual fear feel almost nervous. His eyes narrowed as he gazed at the ledger of names, the 5,731 children staring back at him from the crystalline pages, their echoes of screams lingering like faint static in the air. He wondered, for a fleeting instant, whether he had gone too far, though the thought was as fleeting as the dying of a candle's flame. A small drone hovered at the center of the chamber, carrying a single envelope, metallic and humming with energy. It floated before the Emperor, who extended a hand and caught it without a sound. The seal on the envelope bore a sigil, unknown to even the highest-ranking generals, a symbol that pulsed with a strange, almost sentient energy. He broke the seal, fingers brushing against paper that seemed to shimmer under his touch, and read the single word inscribed within. It was simple, yet heavy, each letter pressing against his mind like the weight of 1,000 stars. Return, it said. The word lingered in the room, a soundless whisper that carried more power than any army, more command than any conquest. The Emperor frowned, an unfamiliar sensation creeping across his mind. Unease, curiosity, a shadow of fear. He had never received a message like this, never from anyone. The court looked on, sensing the shift, the subtle tremor in the air, a momentary crack in the perfect facade of the Emperor's dominance. He pondered the meaning of the word, turning it over in his mind. Return. As if the universe itself had spoken directly to him, the ledger of children lay open before him, the names shimmering, a reminder of the scale of his atrocities. Could it be a warning, a threat, or something far older, something beyond even his comprehension? His fingers tightened around the edge of the throne, knuckles whitening. The power he had amassed across countless systems seemed suddenly fragile, tenuous, like a castle built on sand. Memories of the campaigns flashed in his mind, the worlds he had conquered, the screams of the dying, the faces of children who had looked at him with hope before he crushed it. Each memory was a blade, cutting through the pride he had built over centuries. The word return was a question, a challenge, perhaps even a prophecy. He had never hesitated before, never shown weakness, yet now, the weight of his own deeds pressed down on him like an invisible chain. A cold wind swept through the throne room, though the massive doors had not moved. The flames of the torches flickered, shadows danced across the walls, and for the first time, the Emperor felt watched, not by his subjects, but by something else. Something vast, eternal, beyond even his understanding. It was as if the universe had leaned in to observe him, to judge him, to see whether he would rise or crumble under the truth of his actions. He stood, the cloak of shadows trailing like a dark river, and walked toward the viewport, staring at the infinite expanse of stars. He had thought himself above all, untouchable, the master of life and death, yet the word haunted him, echoing in the silent chamber, turning his victories into question, mocks his power into uncertainty. Return, it whispered again in his mind, and he realized that he did not know what to return to, or if he even wanted to. In that moment, the Emperor's eyes hardened, and a plan began to form, a path that would take him to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, perhaps even beyond. He would seek the origin of the message, confront the source, and bend it to his will. Nothing could stop him, he told himself, yet deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted, subtle, dangerous, persistent. Could the universe itself be his adversary? Or was it merely testing him? And if it was a test, what would it demand of him in the end? As he turned back to the court, the room seemed smaller, the shadows sharper. The generals and ministers bowed lower, sensing a shift in the Emperor's demeanor. The weight of the word return had passed from the envelope into the air, into the very walls, and into the minds of all who watched. A new era was coming, one that even the Galactic Emperor could not fully control, and yet he would face it with the same relentless will that had brought him to this moment. The drone buzzed softly, a reminder of the message, the singular word that could unravel empires, or forge them anew. The Emperor raised his hand, and the ledger of children vanished into the air like starlight, leaving only the echo of their existence. He smiled faintly, a gesture both terrifying and human, and whispered to himself, though the words were carried to no one, "Return." And with that, he began to prepare for the journey that would define the fate of the galaxy. The throne room darkened, the stars outside watching silently, and the Galactic Emperor, master of life, death, and fear, took the first step toward an unknown reckoning. The Emperor's ships waited in the orbital docks, sleek vessels of black alloy that gleamed under the distant sun, each one capable of consuming entire planets. Yet today they were nothing more than instruments of a personal mission. His hand hovered over the command console, feeling the hum of energy ripple through the ship, a sensation he had long associated with power, yet now it carried a strange weight, a silent reminder of the word that had haunted him, return. He issued commands, in a voice that brooked no argument, and the fleet moved with mechanical precision, slipping from the atmosphere of the capital world like shadows fleeing a dying light. The Emperor stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, eyes fixed on the endless void, calculating trajectories, estimating distances, measuring the stars as if they were pieces on a board. The word repeated itself in his mind, not as a threat, not as a warning, but as a summons, pulling him toward a destination he did not yet understand. The corridors of the ship were silent except for the soft hum of the engines, a lullaby of technology and power. His advisors had tried to ask questions, hesitated with nervous murmurs, but he had silenced them all. "We move," he had said, and that was enough. No one dared contradict him, not now, when the weight of the unknown pressed against the edges of their empire. As the flagship jumped through hyperspace, the Emperor's thoughts turned inward, past victories and past cruelties, toward the echoes of the 5,731 children, whose lives he had ended. Their faces, though he had never truly seen them, now haunted his mind like phantoms, and for the first time, he considered the meaning of life he had so casually destroyed. Could the word return mean more than a direction, more than a call to some hidden corner of the galaxy? Could it be a reckoning, a mirror of his own soul, waiting patiently to confront him? The hyperspace lanes flickered as the fleet sped through them, stars stretching and bending, the universe warping around their passage. The Emperor watched with a cold fascination, yet beneath it stirred a curiosity, almost a hunger for understanding. He could not ignore the pull. It was magnetic, irresistible, a call older than any empire he had conquered. Suddenly, the communication panel blinked, a faint pulse unlike any code he had encountered. The Emperor leaned forward, studying the signal with narrowed eyes, decoding layers of encryption that had been placed by beings of unimaginable intelligence. The message resolved into symbols, shapes that defied geometry, and yet one word emerged clearly, unmistakably: return.